Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today's guest is going to be Jiulio Consiglio, and I'm looking forward to talk to him. He's got an incredible story, and in addition, that most guests, and not that it's required, that most guests usually don't have, is he has a lot of videos, and out of those, he sent me about 12 of them. Unfortunately, I think it's either on my end or maybe the browser not updated. About the number 8, 9, 10, and 11 that we had pre-numbered is not coming through. So, but the other ones are, and he'll definitely cover that and much more. So before we begin, I just want to let all of you know that Julia will be taking some questions later on. When that might be, I'm not quite sure, so please hang around and hear him out. And so whenever we naturally conclude that, I will let all of you know when the Q&A session will start. Also, you are actually able to ask a question directly if you join the UFO Hub Telegram group. It's the link for the Telegram group is in the description below, and you can simply install it on your phone or on your computer, and you will hear the show going on at that same time. It's, I think, about 19 seconds delayed, but it's voice only. And you can just hang around there, and when you know that the Q&A is about to start, there's a little button where it looks like a person raising their hand. Click on that, and it tells me that you would like to ask a question. If you are not going to ask a question directly, of course, this is going live right now on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So simply put 3 asterisks before your question. And so that will jump out at me, because then I know it's a question for Jiulio and not just a regular chatter in the chat rooms. And I think that's pretty much it. Also, in the description below, all the links for all the videos are available. Also for his website, YouTube, Facebook, and everything else that you'll see there. Please go and check it out. And he has a lot to offer on all of his platforms, so I would highly recommend you checking it out. All right, so let me get through all my windows that I have here and bring in Jiulio. Jiulio, welcome. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Adnan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad we're able to do this. I don't know, I can't remember what I just said 2 seconds ago, but you and I, you contacted me well over a year ago. And I'm ashamed to say, when I was finally ready and looked back, I was like, oh, let me, go back to first come, first serve, whoever I had on the list. And I realized it was well over a year, but I'm very happy that you agreed to do this.
I'm more than happy to be here too, and I look forward to talking and sharing these experiences with everyone.
Well, I'm excited too, especially when, not that it's a necessity, but I'm glad you had some videos with you, and however that came about. And like I said, we will show those later, and I'm sure you'll expound on those as well, right?
Absolutely. Several videos, close range sightings, so I look forward to giving descriptions as we see those.
Okay. Well, I guess without any further ado, please start out to tell me a little bit about your background, how everything started out for you, and how did you get here today?
Sure. So between the ages of 19 and 33, I experienced some quite intense and profound suffering. I was incredibly sensitive to my energy and the energies around me. And I quickly realized that there was no answers to be found outside of me. Regardless, despite these heavy emotions, the density of them, I went away to school in the United States. I'm from Ontario, Canada, but I went away to school and I got educated, got my degree in science, and came back and started working as a dental hygienist and a clinical and theory instructor. Just as I was graduating, my older and only brother was diagnosed with cancer, and he fought that for a year and passed away the year after I graduated. So he passed away in 1996. That had a tremendous impact on me. He never smoked, he never drank, and I wanted answers. And it really had me, for the first time in my life, contemplate death. So that really struck me deeply. years went on, and I endured, suffering in silence. And eventually, I got married, only to see the marriage fall apart about 2 years in. A year after that marriage falling apart, I was given a health scare. Now, you would think by this time I had created enough suffering for a shift in consciousness, but it was actually my experience with a night terror in the fall of 2005. And that was the final catalyst for me. By that time, I had created a white hot desire to know and understand why things happen the way they do. I had been staring at a book by Dr. Daniel Amen, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And I don't think I got past page 60 or 66. And there was a phrase in the book that went along the lines, when you allow negative thoughts to go unchallenged. Well, that struck a chord in me. So I left the book on the passenger seat of my car. And on this particular day, I had a patient cancel. And what I would often do is leave the dental office, drive a couple of blocks, and just try to relax. On this particular day, in November of 2005, I began to reflect on that phrase. And as I began to reflect on that phrase, not a male and not a female voice came up through my chest and said, challenge your thoughts. In that instant, what I now understand is the third eye activated, and it began to vibrate intensely, shutting down every automatic negative thought, shutting down this negative energy that I had been enduring for so long. Now, I still had a patient to get back to, and I distinctly remember, as this was happening in my car, turning my head and experiencing profound clarity. So I went back to the office, I finished that patient, jumped in the car and started driving home, and now it's a really, really bad rainstorm. And this activated force in my forehead is still going off, shutting down every automatic negative thought. I get home and just feeling sort of emotionally spent and really sort of in a state of surrender. I jumped on the couch and I just said, just let me die. And as I laid down, I popped out. And when I say I popped out, my awareness, my consciousness left. I can't tell you where I went. I can't tell you how long I was gone. When I came back, I knew exactly what had happened. And within a week or two, I began experiencing automatic writing. And by December, so about a month in, I held my first talk on consciousness and enlightenment. And probably by Christmas of December 2005, I had written my first book, Challenge Your Thoughts. Since that time, I've gone on to write The Healing Frequency, Open Your Third Eye, and recently I wrote Cosmic Contact. And Cosmic Contact is about what began to happen in the backyard here in October 2020. So in October 2020, I was in the backyard with two neighbors, and I'd actually been in my townhouse busy writing and editing Open Your Third Eye. So I really didn't spend much time out there. On this particular night, I believe it was October 8th, I went outside and two of my neighbors were there, Matt and James. And within minutes, something caught my eye. It was coming out of the west, and it was a hula hoop shaped object, no form of propulsion. It was silent, maybe 500-600 feet, about 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 times the size of a hula hoop. And I actually recorded it, and I let out an expletive, basically like, what is that? So they saw it with me, and we actually watched it cruise for a couple of miles out into the sky. 4 or 5 minutes later, and I recorded this as well, in the northern sky, minutes later, a pill-shaped object was coming down in a trajectory of about 45 degrees, not a trajectory you'd usually see a plane. And I recorded that, and I basically said, "What is that?" So we sort of didn't know what to make of that. Shortly after, so a few nights after, we're now maybe middle of October, and it's an incredibly clear night, and it's a nice crisp night. And the three of us are in the backyard, and for some reason, I got the vibrational hit to sort of move away from them. So I'm now in the center of the backyard, about 10, 12 feet from them. And I got the vibrational hit to look straight up. And what I saw next astounded me. It was a black, silent, slow moving triangle. What I remember is the gray pads underneath it. I called the guys over, and Matt thought, "Is that a flock of geese?" I said, "Focus, guys, focus." We stood there frozen. And to this day, like it probably happened over 8 or 10 seconds. We just didn't move. We just sort of stared at this. That event then was the beginning of countless sightings. The sightings would start, maybe once a week from then on. It's now gotten to the point where several sightings occur in an evening. I think I've recorded over 300 videos now that include now, recently, Merkabahs, close-range Merkabahs, orbs, this triangle in its energetic form, and that'll probably be the first video that we'll discuss later. But this triangle has demonstrated its capability to us, and in the following year, it began to shoot off spontaneous flashes of light. It actually took me nearly a year to realize what was the source of this light coming through the sky. Sometimes it would be in the middle of winter. They actually started, I'm going to say January, so in the new year of 2021, it would be overcast, and the light would come through like a hot knife through butter and just light up the entire area. And I didn't understand what the source of it was yet. Shortly after the flashes of light started, I began to engage, and I've captured many recordings, at least a dozen, where I'll ask the cloaked object, "Can you go bright? Can you do that again?" Because it'll let off a flash, and then I'll record that and capture that. So this object is able to upgrade and downgrade its energy signature. And we've seen it come in as, to say orb-like structures is limiting because I still can't say exactly what it is. I know it's consciousness-based because it's able to upgrade and downgrade its energy signature. So since October 2020, and with these initial sightings, now it's become exponential, and you get the vibrational hits even, where to go, where to look in the sky, and the manifestations begin to happen. So that's how this began for me.
So I just wanted to clarify something real quick because I saw somebody ask, like, "Where's the YouTube video?" I'm sorry, I misspoke. I don't have the link for your YouTube channel if you have it yet. If not, I'm sure you'll let me know and I can put that in the description. But for right now, the YouTube is not on that list. So I apologize for all of those that started looking for it.
I do have one up, and I probably have a dozen, maybe 15 videos. I've been slow with that, but it's my name, Jiulio Consiglio, so they are up there as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll put the links up later on when we finish up with this, and then they can check that out also. So you know what? I wanted to ask you, could you please talk a little bit more specifically about your definition? So you're talking about I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not on the game today. You said vibrational hit, is that right?
Yeah, so there shortly after the sightings began, um, I almost relate it similar to when I write my books. The downloads and the vibrational hits come instantly, so you get this download of information. It's an instant knowing, and that would actually happen while I was back here. And a perfect example: December 4th, 2021. I was ignoring the vibrational hits to go outside. Suddenly, out of nowhere, because I was watching a favorite show, one of my neighbors texted me, "Get out here, stuff is starting." So December 4th, 2021, I describe it in Cosmic Contact as a whirlwind of activity. I got out there and there were red close range orbs cruising in the northern sky from west to east. And we watched that, and I did record those, and I've posted those on social media. Minutes later, so that triangle that we had witnessed back in October 2020, what had happened was I was at the far end of the townhouse. Matt was closer to me, maybe 7 or 8 feet, and James was further away. Suddenly, I got the vibrational hit to look straight up, and coming from behind us, about 500 feet, triangle as a 3D craft, one light at the tip, came overhead, and I screamed out, "Triangle, it's here." Matt saw it, James didn't. What's extraordinary, because it's the way it has demonstrated and what it can do, is that minutes later, so James had missed that. Minutes later, we went back to the center of the backyard, and James noticed several gray pads that were glistening in the sky. I describe it as a giant eraser, maybe 100 feet wide. And James thought, "Are those birds?" I said, "Focus, guys. Take a real good look." And we realized, and I realized, because I remember locking on to those gray pads initially, and they were all over the sky like a massive eraser. So that was December. Fast forward a few months, we're into May. So May of the following, in the new year, we're in the backyard. I'm facing the driveway, and they're facing the northern sky. And Triangle came in, but it seemed to me almost more holographic or energetic. But it came in as one craft. I said, "It's back. Take a look." They turned around. We saw it. It cruised about 300 feet above us, over the neighbor's house, and then vanished before our eyes. So it's profoundly spiritual, these experiences. Sometimes I put them up there, right up there with my shifting consciousness. So we were talking about it for a few minutes, and we're now in the same positions that we had been. And suddenly the triangle came in again. This time it was actually more energetic. And if we think of a triangle, okay, so wide base, pointed tip, cut that in half. So now you got two pieces. Now I want you to go across. So now you got four pieces. This time it was coming together and moving apart, coming together and moving apart. I screamed out, "It's back, it's back." Matt goes, "Bullshit." I said, "Turn around." And we all turned around and watched this, and then vanish. Same trajectory over the neighbor's house. So it has demonstrated, vibrationally, like, you know where to look. It's like an instant knowing, and it's also demonstrated its potential and capability, which I've only really scratched the surface.
Okay. Well, I think we've held, just by you already describing some things, it's like I'm sure everyone's like, show us the videos if they're, I'm not sure if what you explained that I have that particular one, but how about what do you think if we just switch over to videos? We'll go through all the ones that I can load, and then I would like to talk to you more about more of that consciousness aspect you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely, sounds great. If you want to
Okay.
start with, if you wanted to start with video one, that'd be great.
Okay, we'll do that. Let me shift this over. I'm sorry, they will not be able to see you. They see Milo's screen, but they'll hear you in the background as well. And I'll switch over to the screen where it's just you the second this is done playing. All right, so this is video one. And again, for those listening later on podcast, please keep in mind if obviously you can't see, the links will be in your description. Please go and check them out. I'm sorry that podcast works the way it does. It's sound only, but you will definitely have the information of how to view them on your own when you are when you're not just listening there on radio or other sound devices. So here we go. Here's the first video. Okay, and this one just loops back. Do you want to speak a little bit about that one?
Sure. So that took place May 9th, 2021, and we had been seeing and I've been catching these orbs, but was never able to record them yet. So that is actually the first recording. It took place just after 10 p.m. My neighbor James actually had just left, and I was back there by myself, and I had my phone ready, and I it came in a couple of 100 feet above me, moving fairly quickly. Five, like I said, I described them as orbs. There's so much more to it. It's consciousness based, but that is triangle in its energetic form. And I've captured this object or objects uh, in various configurations and numbers as two, as five, as three, as hundreds, different shapes. And this was my first capture. It had been several months where I was witnessing this, and sometimes with my neighbors, but unable to capture it.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, now I'm switching to video two. And just to let everyone else know too, I don't know which one, was it the third one or whichever, there might be some cussing out there. For those who are more sensitive, just keep in mind it's coming up. For the rest of you, just tune in. Okay, that was, I believe it started looping back, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and go ahead, please tell us a little bit about that. I have it looping in silence while you're speaking about it.
Super. So this event took place about 5 days after the first capture, and typically before it manifests, and it's same thing happened this particular evening. There was a spontaneous flash in the northern sky. Moments later, it manifested. To the naked eye, you could see the orbs undulating and sort of dancing within it, and it was actually getting brighter. It was a couple of 100 feet above us. And the incredible thing was I had my sisters, my niece, and my two neighbors with me when this took place. I didn't give you this other video, but it is on social media. A few days later, about 50 feet overhead, coming from behind me, maybe out of the south, it appeared as two orbs, and I captured that just cruising a couple of 100 miles or maybe 200 miles an hour just over me, and I managed to capture that as well. So again, it's demonstrating its ability to shapeshift, to change its form, to multiply, to come in less. So it's been a profound experience.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, and now I have video three, and I'm going to play that now. Let me shift this over.
Can you go bright again? Can you flash again? Thank you. I just had a very large 2-second.
Also, well, I guess there's nothing to be, I guess, apologizing for me being the person I am. I guess they saw the picture, but there was no sound for the first two. So I guess for anything that came through at that moment. They didn't hear it anyway. So anyway, it's back on. I'm sorry you didn't really, other than Julia explaining what's happening, and you already expounded on it. I promise you did not miss much. So please, Julia, go ahead and speak about the third video.
So this event took place late July 2022. I had been capturing since January 2021 the cloaked object or triangle flashing in the sky, and then me requesting, can you do that again? Can you go bright again? And it responding. And on this particular evening, it flashed in the northern sky, and I asked it to, can you do that again? And I think it's the 18-second mark where you see a nice, really solid flash. Responding, yeah.
No, that is very interesting too. Well, because because a lot of times we always speak about these events as that's there and I'm here and these are circumstances, but to kind of see an interaction and actually communication happening in this however limited form, it's saying a lot more than what we're just seeing here. Especially this long distance, obviously if we're talking about conventional sound, maybe even visual, so I guess consciousness is that thing that will bridge this gap.
Absolutely. I've realized, because oftentimes I'll just step out there and I say, hey guys, come and say hi. And moments later, the crafts start coming in. It's through that dimension of inner stillness, the quantum field, the interconnectedness. It's incredible how they will wait until certain people are not in the area. They will wait. Sometimes they'll appear near planes. They really don't care. They're actually unbothered by airplanes. But the timing is always excruciatingly impeccable. I will say that.
Okay, and so now I'm playing video 4.
Saturday night, April 22nd. First sighting of the evening as I turn around and faced the eastern sky. This is headed north. It's about 1,500 feet or so. Just gonna expand this. Lost it there. There's the object, headed north. We've only been out here for a few minutes. Hey guys, Saturday.
Okay, that was video 4.
So the Merkabas are something new. They began to appear April 6th of this year, and the experiences with them have been incredible. To me, when I observe them, they appear to be literally within their own dimension. I've taken even the videos and done screenshots of them, and it's not even moment by moment. They're changing shape, changing color. It is happening even faster than that. And they've been coming in quite close. So that's been a whole new experience for me.
All right, let's now I'm on video 4. No, 1, 2, 3, 5. Sorry about that. Here we go.
Object has circled back. It's now coming out of the northwest sky. Just passing those stars. I've already had a few sightings that were preceded by 2 spontaneous flashes in the southern sky. And the object is...
Okay, that was 5.
So there's a lot going on in this video. It's important not to blink and to really be present and focused. So this took place November 22nd. 2022, early morning, around 5:30 in the morning. And I'm recording the object that I'm looking at. What I didn't realize, and I've learned to now really go back and really study what I've recorded, within the first second, so you see the object, I'm recording the object, it's moving. Within the first second, you see an ascending energy. And then at the 5-second mark, I get photobombed by a triangle. It comes in to the right of that object. But what also takes place is, and I describe it almost as dragon energy. You see after that ascending object, that initial one, snake-like energy sort of come in. And I took screenshots, and it's just incredible looking at this. But I didn't know that triangle photobombed me. It's done it a few times now. It actually reflects on their playfulness. I've often described their playfulness almost like dolphins. So there's a lot going on in that short video.
Great, thank you for that. And now I'm playing the 6th one.
Hey guys. Got an object coming out of the west. My neighbor James noticed it. It's got an interesting flash on it, eh, James?
It's blinking or something.
But that's red.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a plane.
Let's see if it'll respond. Can you power up? That's not moving like a plane, James. Hey guys.
Okay.
So this was April 6th, my first experience with a Merkaba. I had never seen one before. And to the naked eye, when it was coming in, it appeared triangular, like a red triangle with sort of like extended wingtips. As I'm recording it, I'm noticing the way the light is coming off it. And unless, like for example, when I see the orbs, or when I know it's triangle and you even get that inner knowing, I call it usually an object, or I see triangles coming in. This I wasn't sure, and if I'm not sure, I don't say it. So when I expanded the recording, minutes later, I realized that's a Merkaba. What I didn't also realize is, as I'm recording that, I got photobombed by a blue Merkaba that came in from the upper left of the screen. So that was an incredible experience, and that was the first time I experienced the Merkabas.
Just while I'm shifting over to video 7, can you please explain a little bit to those that might not know what a Merkaba is?
So Merkaba is essentially a light body ship that highly evolved beings travel in. So what you're looking at is essentially them operating in their own dimension, through their own field. It's one of those experiences that when you witness it's actually, I think, almost more profound than some of the other experiences I've had, because you can sense that there's a being within that field that you're observing, or several beings within that field of energy that you're witnessing.
Great, thank you for that. All right, here's video 7.
Low flying orbs coming in.
God, man.
This is the transforming object that we've been experiencing.
Look at it.
Trying to keep it steady.
Oh, this one's a beauty.
Perspective. There's the roof. It's directly above us. It's 3 orbs
Yeah.
directly above us. Perfect pattern.
See it?
Just incredible.
Look at that
Low flying orbs
Oh
coming
my
in.
God.
That's very interesting, especially just visually, and especially for some that are still skeptical and whatnot. The triangular form is really something so oddly different that it's almost it catches your attention. We can't say for certain it's like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what this is, but out of everything else, a triangular shape just appearing in the sky, I think catches the most attention.
Absolutely. This took place late summer, so September 2022, and just another variation of triangle coming in as three orbs. Um, I'll quickly mention this too. So it was actually March 17th, St. Patty's Day, the previous year. Triangle came in as orbs, sort of in a linear line. So it was horizontal, maybe 200 feet, coming towards me as I stood on my back porch. And I wasn't sure. And Matt was on his porch. I said, Matt, I'm not sure if that was triangle. I actually called my sister and I told her what had happened. And I said, I'd love for it to come back because I can't say for sure what I saw. Minutes later, it came back, several orbs, 5 in the back, 4 in front, 3 in front of those, 2 and 1. I ran down the stairs. It was a full moon that night. I nearly wiped out on the snow and ice and watched it take off. But it confirmed, because when it came in as those orbs, I couldn't say for sure. What I did know is it had made such a hard right turn. I'm like, there was nothing natural what I just saw. And then it responded coming in again. So it likes to sort of reiterate itself that I can become a triangle, if I please, or any other configuration.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to attempt again to refresh 8, and everyone can see what I'm seeing with the message. Sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. Please keep in mind, all the links are in the description below. I would highly recommend you checking them out. I apologize that I'm not able to play these, but Jiulio has plenty for you to look at, and please do visit Instagram, especially to see these and all of his other social media. Let me go to 10. Yep, not letting me. And then 11. Okay, okay, so yeah, it seems to be that the problem is persisting. So I know 12 is playing, so I will play that now. Okay, it's already looped once. And so you called, I don't have the description here, but you called this the book something? I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, so my
Flying
sister
book?
actually dubbed it the Flying Book. So I'm in Ontario, Canada. This was winter, December 20th, this past year, 2022. Incredibly cold, no bugs, no bats. And I had actually, to backtrack quickly, I had actually seen 3 of these cruise on by in the summer. They never flapped their wings, about 30 feet overhead, but they were moving too quickly for me to capture. This particular evening, because I've done several times where I just point the camera and I'll talk to the sky, I have one really good recording where spontaneous flashes just start going crazy, responding to me. So I'm recording, and this object comes within 15 feet of me, sort of dive bombing. I felt totally safe, totally comfortable. When I slow down that video, I notice the face beginning to form. I notice the wings beginning to form if you really slow it down. And I'm going to say size-wise, maybe like a 20 or 30-pound dog. It was very sizable. And as I turned around, when I looked over my shoulder to see what was going on as it went overhead, it was gone.
Oh, wow. That's actually, yeah, it's hard to gauge the size, but wow, that's pretty big.
Pretty big, and the something about it gives me almost like ancient Egyptian vibes. Someone on Twitter mentioned fairy. I'm still trying to see, to really get a perspective, some more clarity surrounding it. But like I said, this is not the first time where I've witnessed that.
Okay. Well, thank you again for these. Again, I apologize for not being able to load the other ones, but these are wonderful. I'm glad you sent them to me and that we were able to show this to everyone. I mean, of course, it's always stories are always great, because at the end of the day, that's all you take with you is things you've learned and things you heard.
Right.
Anything else is, just an illusion anyway. But yeah, thank you for these. And again, please go check them out in the description, and especially for those that are listening only. Julia, I wanted then to ask you, you've then brought up consciousness several times. If you could please then speak a little bit more about that, about what is it that feels like it's consciousness when you're looking at them, especially in these videos, and then you said this, these impressions you get. Can you just talk more about that?
Sure. So when I first began to sort of detail and keep like making notes about these things happening, I actually began to ask questions: who, what, when, where, and the downloads of information were coming, faster than my handwriting. So it was the making of the book Cosmic Contact. And what I quickly realized through my writing and downloads is, and my observations is, this is consciousness-based technology. They are operating fifth, sixth, seventh dimension. There are no limits for them. And the demonstration, for example, in May, for example. So just to reflect quickly, that evening where we saw Triangle come in more energetically, just prior to that, and I talk about it in Cosmic Contact, Matt, my one neighbor, noticed lights dancing in a thin cloud off in the northern sky. Took me about 10 seconds to focus in and see it, and then James as well. And shortly after that, Triangle came in. So it sort of has to break, it's giving us pieces. This is what I am right now. This is what I've become. This is what I'm doing now. So that is what I still find it astonishing, but the fact that it can upgrade, downgrade its energy signature. We're talking about consciousness base. So it's undifferentiated energy that can essentially become anything, and it has no limits.
Okay, thank you for that. So, Julia, do you want to go into the Q&A and see, except, they have more probably pressing questions and to ask than maybe I might. So then this way you still get to answer all that they, curious about, without, me just trying to figure out what it is that everyone else out there wants to know more about.
I'd love to, yeah.
Okay. So, for those who are watching, again, you can join the Telegram group that's going on right now to raise your hand in there, and you can talk to Jiulio directly. And as I mentioned earlier, whether you are on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, please in the comments put 3 asterisks before your question, and that way I know it's a question for Jiulio, and then I will read it out to him. So if you have any questions, please submit them now. So, Jiulio, this is going back, and some questions came in the very beginning of the show, so I'm backtracking a little bit. Roll the Losing Dice is asking, did you notice if all the ambient noise outside was quiet when this happened?
Not always. So, for example, when I recorded Triangle the first time, there was actually a motorcycle in the background, and I thought that was interesting. The other thing I'll mention, when I was recording that flying book in December, in the background, there's actually a gentleman on the other side of the street. I think he's got a ghetto blaster going. But oftentimes, if I'm back there and it's late at night and things are quiet and still, that happens as well. But things like, for example, like I mentioned, the airplanes and stuff like that, they're unbothered by them. I have several recordings where planes are passing in the northern sky, coming east to west and vice versa. And I'll have stationary objects, and this started last year. And you quickly realize you're being watched, and it appears brighter than anything in the sky, and it's stationary. And the minute I call it out and I say, "You're not a star," they just vanish.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So the other question comes from Mama Darling Reviews, and there's another, let me see here. There's another comment later on that she makes. just basically asking, does he think the sleep paralysis, and then she corrects herself in a later comment saying that you said night terrors. Well, anyway, did that kind of start this or open up something for you?
So the one experience I had with the night terror was the final straw, the final catalyst. It's what created a burning, hot desire to know and understand why things were happening to me. And there was a sole purpose to it, is for me to spontaneously transcend thought and become conscious of the dimension of inner stillness. It's through that dimension of inner stillness where we reconnect with source or with the high self, or whether you want to use the word God, it's nameless. And through that dimension of inner stillness, automatic negative thought is instantly transmuted and alchemized through the power of unconditional love. See, fear requires our reaction to perpetuate itself. And there's nothing wrong with our human conditioning. Our human conditioning is essentially past projecting into the future. And that's what keeps a lot of people stuck. And that's what kept me stuck for several years. It's when you realize that there's really only the eternal moment of now, that is sort of where you ascend and rise in consciousness, and you see the mind constructs that are past and future. So all that suffering, including that night terror, divine timing and a blessing, because had that not all taken place, I would not have created that white hot desire for a shift in consciousness.
Great, thank you for that. So this there's one viewer here that has several different questions. I don't know if it would be good for me to read each one to you, or just kind of give you a barrage of the questions that they had. But one in particular, for example, is, have you woken up around 3 a.m. after or during these experiences? The other one was, have you experienced any paranormal activity after this happened? And there's one more. It says, did you experience automatic writing when doing your book? So I can read each one of them to you again, or if you can address them.
No, great questions. So I'm going to say after my shift in 2005, I've gotten by on virtually little to no sleep. If I get 2 or 3 hours of sleep since 2005, I may be pushing it. I really don't. When you're operating through that dimension of inner stillness, you waste very little to no energy. The paranormal experiences I've had them take place before my shift, so that night terror. But I lived in what you would call a haunted house for several years after my shift. And even as I was writing Open Your Third Eye, if I can share this briefly,
Sure.
I was going to go buy a farmhouse about a year and a half ago, and because of all the restrictions that were going on, the real estate agent, she unlocked the door. She said, "I'm going to walk through the house." It was a bungalow. It was a farmhouse sort of, and she said, "I'll wait for you in the backyard." I said, "Great." So I brought my measuring tape. I grew up in a hardware store. My dad had a hardware store, so I brought my receptacle tester to check electrical, and I walked into the house, felt neutral, went into left. Walked left into the family room, and behind the family room was a large first master bedroom. First thing I noticed when I walked in there, I turned the lights on and it was still quite dark. And I immediately was hit with the feelings of anger, hate, dread, death, fear. I liked the house so much, I was ignoring those feelings. I finished checking the rest of the house, felt neutral, went outside, and I said to her, "You know what? I'm being guided to go back to that bedroom." I walked back in there, and the energies that I had experienced a few minutes prior were now exponential. And I was like, I don't want to stay here 5 more minutes, let alone a night or two. I felt I could do a clearing, but it felt so raw. So I called out to the real estate agent, and I noticed she never went near that room. I said, "Did someone die in this house? Did someone die in this room?" So I walked out, and she had a V-neck shirt on, and she was red. And she said, "Actually, I'm selling this house for my good friends. Both parents died in that bedroom weeks apart about a month ago." So that was just a nice lesson in me in really honoring what I feel. And I actually included that experience in Open Your Third Eye. But I've had other experiences where I've seen or dealt with shadow people. But when you're centered and you're fearless, that sends them packing. They can't form attachments. So that when you have an understanding of the darker energies, because this is a world of contrast, so there are, shadow people and things like that. When you have an understanding of them, you're fearless, and they really can't mess with your energy. You're so in tune with yourself, what feels neutral, and your environment. Anything that feels different, you are immediately able to discern. So, yeah, the automatic writing, just to finish off that answer, I actually used to experience it in high school. I just wasn't aware of it. I was a really good essay writer, but the automatic writing, it's not unusual for me to write a book in, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks. It happens incredibly quickly. I just put my attention on what it is I'm going to write, and the downloads just come because there's no resistance within me.
Well, before we continue, I'm sure whoever still submits the questions, they'll be there. I actually would like to ask you, can you maybe talk a little bit more about the shadows? Or
Sure.
the,
So,
yep.
so this is a world of relativity. So when you understand that we are mind, body, spirit, okay? So we're a mind, body, spirit. When a person passes, we shed two densest aspects to us. We shed the physical body, and we shed the egoic self, the shadow self, which is the source of our fear, our suffering. And I should preface this, there's nothing wrong with the ego. The ego serves a divine purpose, and it's for our awakening. It gives us the contrast to our light, to inner stillness. When a person passes, wherever they pass, they leave the body, but they also shed that shadow self there, wherever it is they pass. And it's that shadow self that is literally attachment in and of itself. And those are the shadow people or shadow energies that you'll hear, sense. They typically are a bit negative because that's what the ego is in nature. They're not always, they're not dangerous in the sense unless you start creating fear and then it starts playing on that fear. So having an understanding what these shadow energies are, that they are, I say this often, as beautiful as this world is, it's also a spiritual dump in the sense that this is because where the soul goes after death, the ego cannot go because it's going into such high dimension of consciousness and frequency that this is where that shadow self remains.
Great, thank you for that. Well, one of the questions was said, would you say that these experiences were overall positive and good then?
Regarding
Just,
the
I think, so she didn't specify, but I think she's referring
regarding the
to
sightings?
the sightings and, just whatever else happened, prior to that too.
Yeah, sure. So the sightings have been absolutely profound, spiritual in nature. There are times where Triangle has come so close to me. I thought I was going to have an out of body in real time. I'm already operating where every chakra is lit up. To say that it takes me to another level is an understatement. Um, so every experience has been profound, sometimes humorous. The timing, the communication, the feeling of oneness. When it's a couple of thousand feet from me and it's responding to me, it appears to be far off and it hears me. Or when I call them in and they're not even visible. So, with regards to all the other things, the paranormal stuff, the only one that I wasn't even afraid, it sort of shocked me. So, the night terror that I experienced was I'd gone to bed and I was suddenly awoken in the middle of the night by negative energy, feeling it hovering above me. Suddenly, I looked at my sheets and my bed sheet was being pulled off me. I was more sort of astounded or shocked that something that I couldn't see could do that, I wasn't afraid. I was sort of shocked that it could do it, and I didn't understand how it could do that. So I went downstairs, said a few prayers, and the next morning I had to get up to go to work. And as I entered my master bedroom at the threshold, I still sensed it. I could actually hear it growl. And I blew past it and I basically told it to take a hike. And then that's when I, to put it mildly, demanded to know another way. My desire was off the charts. And weeks later, I experienced the spontaneous awakening with the activation and opening of the third eye completely.
You actually just answered the next question I was gonna ask you, which was, is your third eye open? How is your day-to-day experience different than without it being opened?
That's a great question. So operating through an open and activated third eye, you're empowered in the sense that you're living moment by moment in the present. The mind, or the thinking mind, has been silenced. When you do experience the thinking mind, because you realize the truth of inner stillness, it doesn't even have the power to become an emotion. So casting it out, because your vibrational frequency is so high, it now orbits. So if you think of stillness, the dimension of inner stillness, as the neutron, it's neutral, and the conscious mind, that's your positive self, then you have the electron, the negative, that's the ego. That is cast out, and now it just orbits. And as it orbits, it's now not a part of you, but it offers you contrast to your light. It gives you the ability to still be able to relate to people, because in order to help or assist, one has to sort of remember the suffering that one has went through, in the sense, not that you think about it, no, that you remember what it's like. So essentially enlightenment is one hand on the ground, grounded in your humanity, grounded in the now, while the other hand is reaching towards cosmic or universal consciousness. It's a balance. So you're operating, always knowing who you are spiritually, operating through that dimension of inner stillness, realizing the physical body is temporary, and also realizing you're operating through non-resistance. So you learn to consciously call forth your experiences. But the other thing I'll say is, when you're operating through the dimension of inner stillness, you're in the surrendered state. There's no conflict within you. Things are now happening to you and for you. For example, with the UAPs showing up, they came looking for me. Did I know they existed? Absolutely. Did I think I'd ever write a book on it, or that I'd experience them? Not necessarily, but it all makes sense now, because I'm operating through that cosmic or universal consciousness. So what I've gathered from them is they're waiting for humanity to meet them halfway, to meet them through fearlessness and an open-mindedness through that dimension of inner stillness. Inner stillness is cosmic consciousness. It is what connects us with the ETs and with the phenomena altogether, because through that dimension of inner stillness, one is aware and is transcendent of separation and the physical body, and you realize we're all one. So that's why there's no fear, there's no negative experience regarding this. Mind you, if you approach the phenomena with fear, we're so powerful as creators, you will create that fearful experience. So because everything is a potential in the quantum field, every single outcome experience is sort of like a film strip, a potential, and it's us who calls forth reality moment by moment. It's also important to mention this: when you're operating through the dimension of inner stillness, through enlightenment, you realize circumstances don't matter, that they're not concrete. So many of us get focused and tied up with where we are, and we repeat that in our consciousness. We feel stuck and we feel helpless. If you realize we're really in a fluid environment, you got to change your thoughts, change your perceptions, and create a vision regardless, despite what you see. That's when you start making massive shifts. The shifts begin within and then are expressed outwardly.
So, Giulio, is there anything regarding any of the other subject that we might not have covered that you would like to talk about, or any of the other books that you want to cover? Just basically want to leave it open to you to just take the opportunity to do that.
Sure. So I can talk about sort of the evolution of my writing. My first book, Challenge Your Thoughts, I dissect the egoic mind. And in dissecting it and in writing that, it was all that dissection of the ego and its inner workings that brought forth all the remembrances of our human conditioning. Because once you understand the way you've been conditioned, you can then create space if you've been experiencing suffering or want to get unstuck or go beyond past and future. That gives you the insight and how to observe thought instead of react to it. The next book I wrote, The Healing Frequency, is an evolution in the sense that I also get into the miracles and the potentials that are available to us. I'll give an example. As my brother was passing away, about a week before he died, I would leave the dental office and go visit him. And even then, I was operating through stillness, but I was not aware of it. So on this particular day, I've always been sensitive to energy and being able to read it. I got off the elevator and his room was straight ahead. For some reason, I glanced right, and at the end of the corridor was a greeting room, and it was very bland, green. There was a couch, TV, nothing out of the ordinary. On this particular evening, about a week before he died, I got off the elevator, I glanced over, and I saw what appeared to be a statue of Holy Mary, and the room was pale blue, and there were roses along the wall. So I walk into the room and my sisters are there, and I said to my one sister, Jerry, I said, wow, that's beautiful. They turned the greeting room into a chapel. And Jerry says, what are you talking about? We went back out there and it was a greeting room. There was no statue of Mary. There was no blue walls. So that was a vision that I'd experienced. And that took place operating through that dimension of, again, inner stillness. So the healing frequency talks about the potentials that are available: spontaneous healing, spontaneous awakening. Once you heal the separation, heal the mind, transcend it, then you are non-resistant and you allow the highest self to express whether it's healing that you need, whether it's insight, clarity, to spontaneously come to the forefront of our consciousness and be experienced. The evolution now moving on is open your third eye. Is the last 5 or 6 years, I'm going to say, I've really seen a real coming online of my psychic abilities, and it's just an expansion and a demonstration of the evolution of consciousness. And what I've realized is our own psychic abilities have a desire to express themselves through us, just as we are expressing ourselves through source. So you realize things like intuition, clairvoyance, those are all potentials within us. And when, even synchronicity, when we start paying attention, you realize, the synchronicity in a fortune cookie, it could be the next song you hear. So that's what Open Your Third Eye is about, is the honing and the mastery of your psychic abilities. And then moving forward, the cosmic contact is I merge the spiritual understanding and how it ties into the phenomena of what I've been experiencing and the insights, true disclosure. Because if we wait for some sort of outside sort of agency to give us that, it's sort of like enlightenment. To wait for someone outside of you to give you enlightenment, you'll be waiting forever because it's an inside job. And same with understanding the phenomena. Once you understand your spiritual self, you will understand the extraterrestrials. And the last thing I'll mention is another book I have coming out, Finding Your Calm, and that's not until November. And that one is a collaboration, just ways to use the chakras to find greater inner peace and serenity and tranquility.
Great, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. When it's often on the show, whenever I talk to just between me and whoever happens to log in during open lines, I would share different experiences and, different understandings that I've gained from it. And I think it's still, no matter how much it's covered, I think it's the most difficult part for people to understand the oneness, the consciousness connection between all of us, and how then everything else, comes into play, whether it's government place, viewing ships in the sky and all these other things. It's almost like unless you've had that experience on your own, it's very difficult to draw that. I mean, over the years, I've tried to connect these different dots and everything together for people to kind of get the idea. At least if you haven't had that experience, but at least you can, as I say, analyze it intellectually, to hopefully, gain some understanding there. But I still find, in my personal opinion, I still find that to be the most difficult part, just gaining that understanding.
What I would add to that is, for example, with the oneness, I could sort of demonstrate it within a minute. So you can't experience anger at someone or a life event, or let's say you're hammering a nail and you hit your thumb and you get angry at the hammer. You can't experience that without you immediately feeling those emotions. So when you immediately project, is immediately returned to you, because if you realize in the transcendent state, so in stillness, there is no separation. So the physical body is 99.99999% space. It's essentially an illusion, and the thinking mind is a dreaming state. So to experience that dimension of inner stillness is to experience spiritual reality and that oneness. So you can't, again, be angry at someone without you instantly feeling that emotion. And actually, the clearer you get, so the quieter you get, you will realize, depending on whatever emotion it is, whether it's hate, anger, these emotions tend to be drawn towards particular chakras. So realizing, coming from the awareness is where you can really make shifts in your life, realizing we're all one. And again, it has to be, I can say it till I'm blue in the face. It's a directly experienced, though, in the dimension of inner stillness. And the doorway to that dimension is always the eternal moment of now.
Thank you for that. I think you kind of answered, I think you've answered this one, but I'm going to ask it for the sake of it being submitted, and because I appreciate everyone else that does participate, because it just makes things a lot more funner. This one is again from Roll the Losing Dice, asking, do you believe synchronicity happens from the third eye being opened, or does it lead to it?
What I would say is synchronicity is always happening and taking place. The question is, who is paying attention? So the thing about the third eye is it's always in play in varying degrees. So it's not like we don't have intuition. The question is, who's paying attention to the energy within them and around them? Everything is speaking to us, including our environment. The nothingness surrounding you, the nothingness within us, that is filled and teeming with information, insight, clarity, clairvoyance, telepathy, you name it, clear everything. So the more you become aware, see, this is how powerful we are. Our awareness of something is what gives life to it, including the soul. That's sort of like the resurrection, the return of awareness. So that inner stillness, whether we call it Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, the cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, is essentially nameless. It's that dimension of just no mind. So the more you tune into that through the now, and the more you're present, the more you will realize synchronicities are happening. And then as you become aware of them, you can literally open the floodgates where everything literally is speaking to you. And that's how you're guided. That's how you know what steps to take.
Great, thank you. Frank has a question. He's asking, where did Jiulio film the UAP posted 8 days ago?
Virtually all of my recordings take place in the backyard, but the phenomena does follow me. Last year, my birthday, they showed up at my sister's backyard. She lives on 2 acres, but virtually everything is in my backyard.
Okay, great. Well, I guess just to summarize, taking all these things into consideration, working on yourself, and opening that third eye, as the phrase goes, that is what can eventually lead to these videos you've shot, and experiences. And I think unless you want to add to it or maybe correct me in my opinion here, that is the way to go about this, instead of just going out in the field, sitting around and hoping something might happen. In a way, you are putting that out, so it could, nothing is impossible, but there is a little bit of homework that everyone can do if they want to have more success with that.
Absolutely, and I'll speak on that. So the when you're cultivating living in the present moment, when you're able to practice challenging negative thoughts, that's becoming egoless. When you're bringing meditation and mindfulness to your moments, meditation is simply focus. So if you're present and aware wherever you are, that's meditation. And you can get to a point where the more you practice being in the present moment, the quieter the mind becomes. You actually start creating space between the thinking mind and your awareness. What enlightenment is being aware of awareness, being aware of the stillness. When you're coming into that and allowing the unfolding of consciousness within you, so now you're operating through unconditional love, you're becoming more fearless. So you're opening up the potential and possibility of experiencing the UAPs. They've made it clear to me, what would be the point of us showing up en masse with the majority of human beings not having made a shift in consciousness or awareness, not having realized the oneness? And I should mention this real quick. I talk about it in the book. We talk about the word alien and people throw it around, and we've sort of been conditioned to think of them as aliens and separate. So here's a nice example. You look at sharks. We grew up looking at sharks, knowing about sharks, understanding them, but they live a very alien existence relative to us. They look really different. They breathe underwater, but we don't see them as alien. The reason why is because we have an understanding. Well, the moment you have an understanding of the ETs and you realize that they share their oneness in us through the dimension of inner stillness, whether we call it cosmic consciousness, Christ consciousness, these are ascended masters. So they are, from one point of view, future versions of us coming back to assist, not so much in our evolution, but to show us the potential that we have. So they're waiting for humanity individually and collectively start making more shifts, because we're going to hit a critical mass. We've heard, in the Bible about New Earth. New Earth is about seeing the world through the dimension of inner stillness. New Earth is about living in the present moment. And when you live in the present moment, you shift into another dimension. That's finding the kingdom. So New Earth, I realized, was here and now in 2005. And New Earth is here. It's a parallel dimension. It's the dimension of inner stillness. And we're already there. We've never left home. We think we have. We think we're separate from each other. That's the reason why humanity is in the shape it's in now. But as horrible as it sort of looks on the surface, it's serving a purpose, and that's for the awakening of humanity. So they're saying, we're not going to show up en masse until more of you have made that shift into unconditional love, openness. So it takes a little bit of work, but once you have that willingness, that's all Source or God needs to express itself to you and through you as stillness, as clarity, as wisdom, as understanding. And once you tap into that, like I said, that dimension of inner stillness, the soul, you'll realize you have already made that connection with the extraterrestrials, because they are operating through that same dimension of inner stillness. But the only difference is they are even more aware and have activated even more potentials. The opening of the third eye, that's just the beginning.
So then, going along then with this last question, which I guess for those that really want to know would be a good one to ask. Do you think that these aliens are interdimensional or from faraway star systems?
That's a great question. I want to say almost both. So they're living in parallel realities here and now. They are able to travel, not even at the speed of light, it's the speed of thought. So they are able to move in and out of dimensions. They're able to travel, the speed is limitless because they're traveling at the speed of thought. So in becoming harmless, so when you operate through enlightenment, through that dimension of inner stillness, you don't get those gifts and potentials to do things like that, to teleport, to appear the way they do, to transform, upgrade, downgrade their frequencies, unless you become harmless. So there's another narrative that that is sort of trying to play out that we don't know what they are, and it could be dangerous and this and that. It's a fallacy. They come in peace, and you can't evolve and come into that potential unless you've become harmless.
Right. I think it was several years ago I talked about that too, that it's almost like a built-in universal law that with raising your frequency, your vibration, a different understanding comes along to where you go beyond physical fuel and needing liquid and jet in huge rockets to propel you. Because when you are still limited, consciousness-wise, not from the overall consciousness that you are, but just the characters that we all are and playing out in this world. You only going to reach barely reach the moon, and any other planets, just having a conventional thought. But once your consciousness, just the frequency of it changes and rises, a new understanding comes along. It's almost like a child growing up and, tapping into parts of their mind that they couldn't do before, because there was just a child, and new ideas come to mind. But with that, also your persona and everything else changes. So where before, I can't speak for every human being on the planet, but I think like before, where everyone would just lose it immediately because they're impatient and they're 5 years old, as a 10-year-old, you had a little bit more temperance now to you. You're not reacting to the same things in the same way. And then, of course, 15, 50, and so on. I see it the same way progressing. The more you basically raise your vibration, the more comes to you, and a great understanding about everything else that you want to know out there. But what's really funny is that you can only come back and tell everyone else, unless they go there by themselves to see it for themselves.
Absolutely. We're all here to remember who we are. So this is all an evolution of consciousness. They've basically told me we only really need one law, and the law is do no harm. It's all encompassing. Just do no harm. So treat others as you would want to be treated. Operate through that oneness, that awareness of oneness, experiencing it, and that to me is crystal clear.
Right. Well, Jiulio, thank you very much again for today. It's been awesome. I love the videos and everything else you talked about today, and I'm pretty sure for those that are seeking and are on the journey, on their own, this is definitely one of the interviews to watch. So unless you would like to add something else that I don't know to ask, I think we've come to a good conclusion.
I just wanted to thank you so much, Adnan. You've been so gracious during this whole process, and I just wanted to thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for the questions.
Well, it doesn't have to end here. All the things in the description are available for all of you to check out, and maybe send a line or two to Jiulio through the website. If I think they could, I didn't check it out, but definitely most people that are on a path and do take the time to leave videos behind or share some information like via books and whatnot, it's definitely worth it paying attention to it and checking it out. So take advantage of it. Everything is in the description. For those just listening, for those of you who are watching, it can't hurt, other than you just growing and understanding things better than what you did yesterday. So again, Jiulio, thank you. And I thank everyone else that's been watching. I appreciate you joining us live. And of course, this video will now stay online until YouTube takes it down. But of course, I have Rumble and Twitch as backups. So please check those out as well. This video will most likely tomorrow become available on Rumble for you to watch there. So just a different platform so that if and when YouTube decides to take me down, UFO Hub is not entirely gone. So again, Thank you, Jiulio. Thanks everyone else watching, and we'll catch you next week on Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Thanks, Ed. Take care.
All right, take care.